So, so welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Leah Lamb, and I am a sacred storyteller. And it took me a really long time to come to a place of absolute confidence in the bottom of my belly and all the way in every cellular that lives in my heart to the bottom of my feet to really understand what that means. And to me, what that means to be a sacred storyteller is someone who is both connected to earth, rooted to this earth, who has the skills and capacity to be humble enough to listen to the earth, and also connected to spirit. And as a storyteller, we are this vessel. When I studied acting in New York City and for many, many years professionally, they teach you a lot about using your tool, this sacred vessel. And what I didn't learn till many years later is that when you connect to earth and spirit together, there's an alchemy that comes, there's a meeting, and that comes through us, through the shape of resonance, through our voice, through our story, through our life force. And then our life force begins to feed the life force around us, or our life force takes from it, steals from it, kills it. We can do so many things with our words. So that's a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today is what is it to be a sacred storyteller in our time? What is it to be a conscious creator in our time? And I would reckon that you are already there. It's just a matter of, are you aware of all the tools that you're using every day? So we're going to start to fine tune and hone that a little bit. This is an introductory course into the landscape of sacred storytelling. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about working with stool, like what does it mean to be a warrior storyteller? We're going to talk a little bit about that. There are going to be times when I'm going to be asking you questions. They're real questions. I invite you to put your answers in the chat box or to speak out loud. I'm going to ask everyone to always be really essential with your language. And the reason why I'm doing that is one great skill to practice. And the other reason why I'm asking is because we only have a little bit of time to cover a lot of material, and I want to give you absolutely everything I can in this amount of time. At the end, I'm going to tell you a story. It's one of my favorite stories, and it's one of the stories that I love to bring when there's a particularly strong resonance of fear in the world. And so after considering what's going on in so many different places, it seemed like a really beautiful time to bring this very joy-filled story. And then at the end, for those who want to learn more about the School for Sacred Storytelling, I am going to tell you all about our amazing 14 teachers who are coming to teach this truly incredible curriculum. I'll also tell you about the very special bonus that's only available today. Okay, there you go. I'm just looking at who's here. Kurt's coming in from Oakland and Melbourne, Florida. And tending to the garden, storytelling and the nurturing the story that needs to be told. Yes, Bertalan is coming in. A strategy to handle disability is to check out before it happens. Okay, and so I've heard a couple of people speaking about disability, and I love that. Look, there's it's so much about language, right? We're going to talk a lot about language. I once worked on an all abilities trek. That's what they called it. It was people that had major, what would be called physical disabilities, people who were in wheelchairs and had parts of legs and parts of arms. And we were in Nepal, we went from Lukla to Everest Base Camp, and it was the first all abilities exhibition, and that's what they called it. And it was such an eye-opening for me to say. They also said that everyone else is temporarily able-bodied. Look, I've never forgotten that. I heard that in 1998. So look, we just said so many different things. We just took some words and we moved them around and reshaped them, and wow, like a whole new paradigm reality. Petra's coming in from you're fine. Nothing's gone on yet, Petra. We're just getting our feet wet over here. That's all that we're doing. And I love that story is still bearing fruit, Jennifer. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and to imagine that there's this golden ball right around you. And this golden ball is your protector field. It's like this really incredible, just very strong protector field, and only love can come through it. And I'm going to invite you to imagine that all of your energy is sort of like strands that goes through this gold, this gold projector field, and it's all out in the world, and it's thinking about your groceries, and it's thinking about the people that you love, and it's thinking about the people who love you, and all the things that are wanted and all that. And imagine all that energy coming all the way back to you, all these strings and tendrils coming back into your body, and just noticing what part of your body needs that energy most. And remember, you've got this magic golden ball, and all the gunk, all the projections, all the energy that's not yours, all the stuck stuff, that all stays on the outside, sort of like a lint. It just comes right off, and only your pure source form love energy comes right back to you. And just notice, where in your body does it go? And just take a nice deep breath into yourself in this place of full presence. And just feeling yourself all the way here. And I want to ask you to wonder about for a few moments, why are you here? Why are you giving an hour of your life to this theme of sacred storytelling? What does it mean to stand at the threshold of someone who is in claiming their relationship to the divine, the divinity, of using life energy to serve life energy? And I'm asking you to really continue to consider, why are you here, in terms of, are there stories in you that are just like, have got to get out? Is it bothering you and agitating you? Or are you getting tapped on the shoulder by the muse who's just saying, pick me, listen to me, write me down? Are you one of those old people that's not an old people, but the person who wants to carry the old stories? One of those rare ones among us who wants to keep the old stories alive? And are you someone who is a visionary, who sees and believes in another kind of future, and is committed to planting the seeds that might make the pathway there through the words that you speak? I always like to ask people, why are you here? And I'm gonna start us off with a quote. We think we tell stories, but often stories tell us. They tell us to love or hate. They tell us to see or be seen. And often, too often, stories will saddle us, and they will ride us, and they will whip us onward, and they will tell us what to do. And we do it without questioning. The task of learning to be free requires learning to hear those stories, to question those stories, to pause and hear silence, to name them, and then become a storyteller. That quote is by Rebecca Solnit, and I love starting with that quote because it speaks to pretty much the whole journey of a storyteller. It just gets right to it. That before you should be telling your story, you should be deeply, deeply listening, and listening to all the different stories around us. I'll tell you just a little bit about my story, which is a little bit of my story is that I grew up on a farm in Vermont. And I traveled a lot because my parents lived in 2 different states. And so I would take the plane. And every time I got on the plane, I did 2 things. First, I would ask the person to tell me a story. I was story addicted, like every child, right? And then I would ask them about the Bermuda Triangle. I don't know. We were never flying over the Bermuda Triangle, but I was super fascinated, and I was hoping that they would tell me. But I learned very young that stories could be this tool of this mechanism. I learned very young that stories are powerful. And that when moving around from state to state or from school to school was a little bit too hard, because if you've ever been the new kid in school, you really know it's not fun. That stories were always my escape. I always had a book with me. And so I learned very young that stories could transport you. They could take you into other worlds. They could give you other friends. They could give you everything you wanted. And the only thing that you had to do to go there was to know how to read. I learned the responsibility of storytelling when I was 16 years old, and my best friend committed suicide. And I took that grief and I took that pain to the place that had always been my sanctuary, which was writing. That's just where I learned how to express and learn and do all of that. And that play that I wrote ended up getting a place in the Young Playwriting Festival, and I saw it on the stage. And that's when I learned that what you put out into the world comes back. And it's very powerful. What we put out comes back. That as I shared my grief, other people shared their grief with me. I learned the business of storytelling when I went straight off to New York City, and I started studying professionally in that world, and went to summer stock and worked off Broadway. And I discovered very young that it was not for me, and I had no interest in spending a life speaking other people's words. I began to learn about that good intentions are not enough. When I took my desire and my love and my passion for protecting this planet to San Francisco and got a job with Al Gore working at his television network, producing and hosting the Green Channel. And I learned that there were a lot of people that really wanted to wake people up and sound the alert system. And I learned that there's many different kinds of storytellers, that there are the ones that are raising the flag, that there are the ones that will show the mirror, and that there are ones that are who are the healers, who are actually trying to create a path out of the story. And I learned that there were a lot of people that really cared, that were stuck and trapped, and probably one of the most dangerous stories of our time. And I'm not talking about debating the science or the impact of humans on this earth. I'm talking about the power of a story that does not give us a vision of a better world or a role that we can play. I'm going to ask if people have to move around a lot that you turn off your video, because it's just hard for me when there's a lot of motion. I know I want to see all of you all the time, but it's hard for all of us. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that, because there's this amazing thing that you should know about, and it's the power of peripheral vision. And what happens is that our peripheral vision, when it gets activated, we start going into a fight or flight mode, and we stop doing critical thinking. We get distracted and we're not thinking the same way. This happens when we watch TV. TV is a moving image. And so what happens is that we actually think differently when we're watching TV than when we listen. There's all kinds of science on that. So a little fun fact on the thrills and chills of that. Okay, so let's talk about who of you who came here because you're interested in the idea of warrior storytelling. I just want to understand, right? A raise of hands. How many here are talking about that? Okay, so we're going to get a little bit into that. I'm going to give some foundational concepts though, and some of you guys who are repeat, I'm going to call you guys repeat offenders just because it's super fun. But it's like some of this, you guys, you know, it's you're so familiar with it, but I love it. I love it. So let's just talk a little bit about a little bit of history around, storytelling. So Hawaiians believe that words are so powerful that they can raise enough power to, and it's ironic that we're saying this right now, that words are so powerful they can raise enough energy to slow the world or set it into motion. And if you ever have an opportunity to see the hula and see is that how active it is, and see that that is a prayer, those are embodied physical prayers. That's what hula is. It's not a sexy dance. It's embodied physical prayers of people who actually know what it is to be able to have their actual worlds shape the matter of life around them, to be able to call the clouds, to be able to speak to lava, the Pele. Sicilians say that words poke holes in the universe. And I always think about that when I think of, oh gosh, when you start to get a little bit, the temperature starts to rise and you get a little bit agitated and a little bit upset. And you're like, ooh, gosh, you can't take it back. You can't ever take back what's been said. If you're lucky, you're with people where you can repair. I always think about how careful are we with our language. Australians say that stories of the past must be carried into the present for the future to exist. The Maori say the words don't describe a thing, that they are the thing. In Japanese, there's a word called kotodama. It means word spirit, and it refers to the original divine spirit of a word before it enters the world of thought waves. The idea is that words are alive. Oh, abracadabra. Abracadabra, it's a word from ancient mysticism. And it means I create as I speak. I love this quote from Stephen Jenkinson. Wherever I go, whoops, where did it go? That's not funny. I started reading it and it disappeared. Let's try that again. Wherever I go, I speak. I can't go anywhere, nor can you, without speaking your way there. That's how you arrive. It's like a wake on a boat. It arrives to the shore before you do. So language is an exquisite tool in which we are made. That's by Stephen Jenkinson. So let's kind of let's wander into this let's navigate into this world of story. What is it? What is a story? And I'm really asking you, and why don't you put it into the chat box, and we're going to start picking up and putting all the pieces together. What welcome, Donna. I'm just seeing all of you guys here. Great. Anyone watching the birds and lizards disturbing? I'm not, no, I wasn't speaking to you. Even, what is it? What's a story? I'm asking. What is a story? Welcome, Petra. There's no wrong answer. You literally, you cannot answer this question wrong. There's only one way to answer it. It's with whatever you are carrying in you right now. What is a story? And what you bring helps also just feed and nurture our greater conversation. Oh. When I first started out with all of this and really trying to explain, like, what is a story and why are they so powerful? Jennifer saying a story is a message from one soul to others. Oh, I love that. That there's something that's connected to our soul. Oh, I love that. Oh gosh, I don't know why I have a tough time with pronouncing your name. Aliyah. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, honey. Please tell us. You can tell us how it is. A crafting of a desired resonance. Well, look at that. I really like this, what we're getting into here, and this is going to come back to Jennifer's conversation around trust and resonance, right? So it's like what I hear in this piece, a crafting of desired resonance, is that when we're a really conscious creator, one of the first questions I ask in my classrooms is, as a storyteller, what are you in service to? I'm going to ask you all of that. What are you in service to? You know, are you in service to bringing more love in the world, or more, or building community, or, you know, bringing a little bit more joy and play, or helping people get access to their grief, or helping people come to the truth, you know, facing truth, shining light in dark places. There's so many different things that you could be really committed to. And the more and the stronger you know what you are committed to, the more and stronger it lives in your bones. It just kind of radiates out of you, comes through your resonance, you know. And so I love that piece, because to me that's kind of like an advanced aspect of storytelling, really knowing what you're in service to. So you don't even have to say the word, people can't help but feel it in your presence. Walter's saying that story equals an invisible living entity conjured up by the teller for the audience listening. Walter, where are you? There you are. You know, I like how you think. Yes, I would absolutely agree. I would absolutely agree. And if you are really astute at watching storytellers, you'll notice that a lot of them will do an invocation, you know, especially the old storytellers. They're doing an invocation. They're calling to the soul of a story. And when I do my soul stories with people, I explain to them that we're literally calling forth the soul of their story. And that when we start doing it, and we're conjuring it, and we're praying for it, and we're asking for it, all of a sudden it arrives. And I can start, and it's like, and it waves its hand and it says, hey, it's me, Bob, I'm over here. You know, so I sing back its name. And it's, by doing so, I'm saying, hey, Bob, I see you over there, come over here. You know, and so this idea of that, as storytellers, we are conjuring life forces that are in the unseen world, but make themselves visible through story. Now, look, that's pretty freaking trippy, right? I mean, think about how unbelievably complex this technology is. Okay, because storytellers can take something that nobody else can see, that is not in the physical world, and through our resonance, through the power and life force of our heart, through words, we can start activating images. Okay, nobody understands imagination. I love this. It's like it truly is the last frontier. Nobody knows where it comes from. And so when we start activating that, if I start telling you a story, once upon a time, on a land not so far away, at a time not so long ago, at the bottom of a great tree, there was this taproot. And this taproot went down, 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 down to the very bottom of the ocean. And at the bottom of the ocean, there was this carriage, a horse-drawn carriage that taproot was connected to. And as the carriage would move a couple of feet at a time, the tree would slowly move a couple of feet at a time. It was a great mystery how this great big tree was walking across land, but it was happening. Okay, so how many of you saw that image? Great. Okay. We location traveled, we reality bended, we created a new world order. The right lobe of my brain kind of magical, right? Like, I mean, thanks for Zoom, but we didn't even need the technology for us all to go to that one place together, right? We have this shared experience. Even all of our different political, versions of reality and what's good and what's bad, we went there together, without much resistance, I don't think. I think we kind of all went there together. There was no having to convince you of anything, even though that reality was so far out of belief systems, right? So what was happening was that in the right side of my lobe, the right lobe side of the lobe of my brain started to activate. Okay. And it went deep, 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 deep. And so what I'm calling magical, Princeton calls neural coupling, because the right lobe of your brain also started to go deep, 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 deep as it created images. That's how unbelievably powerful we are as storytellers. We can plant images and ideas in other people's minds. One of the most extraordinary thing about COVID is that it got into everybody's house without the virus even being present. Right? The consciousness, the story of it took over. What an extraordinary thing. So as storytellers, we're super powerful, but don't be fooled. Don't think because it's the greatest magic trick of the universe, right? To think that the power is in the storytellers, because that's not it. The storytellers don't actually hold the power. It's the listeners that truly hold the power. It's this giving receiving cycle. So every aspect of storytelling involves the oldest key component that keeps the world going. And it's that giving and receiving cycle. And so a storyteller can give, but unless there's someone to receive and complete the cycle, the story will die. And so we're seeing that right now, right? We're seeing a lot of stories be left, they're leaving this earth. They're going away. They're being lost. And we're seeing a lot of new stories come in. But remembering that this giving and receiving cycle, this is how, if you listen to the old stories, it's the thing that keeps the wheel of life going. Like when we make an offering to the earth, or when we are hungry, we make an offering to the animals, and they give back, and now we have more life to live, and we receive it with gratitude. And then it continues, right? So this cycle of life that we experience through storytelling, and when we're really doing it, is actually bringing us back into relationship of one of the most key cycles of life on this planet, and one of the key wisdom teaching about how to keep life going. So if that alone isn't like enough to say, yes, I'm going to host a story circle, and I'm going to start bringing people together, and we're going to have listening circles, and we're going to keep the cycle of life going through this giving and receiving thing. And by the way, I'm not going to receive a bunch of nonsense or stuff that is planting fear or separation or hate inside of me. Right. So as a sacred storyteller, you can always also ask, is this a story that I want to carry? Is this a story that serves life? I'm getting ahead of myself because I got so excited. Look, you just say one little thing, and thank you, Walter. We just went on and on and on. Raina says a story is remembrance of self. Oh, I love that. right? And when you look at the language of tell, it's actually related to tale. It's related to arithmetic. Okay, so and it goes through this in many different languages when they talk about the recounter. I believe I think that's part of the language of a storyteller in French. So what we're talking about is storytellers hold a very key role in remembering who we are and where we came from. And so and it also remembers of, right, literally both as a greater group and as individuals. Tegan saying that it's a teaching healing journey that takes us on the journey of our own way, and says that each of us needs to hear, says what each of us needs to hear. Tegan, I love that. You're talking to a little bit of a secret of storytelling. How many of you, this is a great question, how many of you have gone to a movie or listened to something with somebody and you walked away and you both saw two different stories or heard two different things? Right. Isn't that cool? I mean, it's so cool. You're like, wow, how did that happen? We all have these different filters, or we're only able to hear certain things, you know, and that is like one of the coolest things, especially the oldest stories, that we can keep coming back to them, and they're going to say different things to us at different times in our lives based on where we are living in our consciousness, what we're ready to hear and receive. So it's a pretty wonderful thing to have this kind of ally that you can keep coming back to. I once told a story, I must have told it 35 times, and on the 36th time that story told me something totally new that blew my mind. And I do think that oftentimes our stories do tell us what they are if we're in that kind of humble state of listening. So I'm going to go into a little bit of you guys are going on and on and on. There's living energy, the service to the story, weaving worlds to take us on journeys. An echo of our collective heartbeat. Varda. Jennifer is a story. I love it. So it's like, you guys are so great. Perspective and orientation, right? True. I love this word, true. You guys know what true means, right? It's a carpentry term. It means a straight line from here to there. So yeah, I can have my truth, and Varda can have her truth, and Reva can have her truth, and Jennifer can have her truth, and we can all be seeing different things because of where we're sitting. We're just talking about our perspective. So, and that's why I also love storytelling, because storytelling can actually handle a lot. A story can handle so much complexity. It can have so many truths. A whole story will have a lot of different perspectives. That's how you can tell you're in a whole story, because there's more than one point of view. They're not linear or one-dimensional. They're multi-dimensional beings. So now let's kind of get into, I'll tell you a little bit of a very unromantic expression of a story. It's an operating system. Okay, it's another way of looking at a system. It teaches us our values, our belief systems, what we think is possible. Okay, and we're often getting programmed. Look, it's in the language. Our television programs, right? Isn't that great? The programming. And so, think about the television that you're watching as a young person, the stories that your family was telling you about what to expect around what role you could play, how much money you could make, all these different things, what kind of job you could have, what kind of future you could have. Were you supposed to get married or not married? It's like all these different things. Who were you supposed to be in relationship with? All these things came from the stories that you were living in. And so I love, I live in LA, and it's like they always say that humans use the latest technology in reference to themselves as a metaphor. What is a metaphor? But it's actually the language of spirit, one of my favorite expressions of what that is. And so I'm using it. We used to refer to ourselves as machines, right? When cars were the biggest technology. Now computers are. So I'm using that as the metaphor. And I love in LA, there's all this language where I'm going to upgrade. I'm upgrading my system. I'm upgrading my operating system. I'm jumping into a different paradigm. The language is so entertaining. And there's some truth to it, right? It's like when we escape a story that life is supposed to be this way, then we're kind of shifting in the shape and the structure of what we live within. Now, what's a sacred story? What's the distinction? What is a sacred story? Walter kind of hinted at it back there. There's a spirit in it. Oh, I want to say one other thing, though. I was walking through I lived in Topanga Canyon. I was walking, through the hills, and it's where I get most of my inspiration. If you read my newsletters, I give them mostly, I give the canyon full credit. That's often where my inspiration comes from. And I was walking through, and I swear to God, those trees were like, Leah, lamb. They call me lamb. They're like that whole description of a story being an operating system. It's just dreadful. I mean, pathetic. I'm like, yeah, but people get it. I'm speaking their language, and they're like, no, it's just like there's nothing elegant about it, and so we're getting it. I'm like, well, what do you got? What's so much better? And they're like, a story is a library of the soul. And I was like, oh, that's good. I like that. I like that. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because stories, we're talking about warriors and stories as tool for healing. Your stories better change. I'm not going to even be nice here. I'm going to be full on tough love. Your stories had better change, because they are indicators of where we are in our ability to grow, our ability to age, our ability to assemble all of our life experiences. And there's this really fantastic TEDx talk by Donald, now I'm not remembering his name, but his link is in my last newsletter. And it's a TEDx talks in Charlottesville. And he talked about when he was a young boy and he broke his leg, and his mother told him, she was like, every time you tell your story, that you're going to tell it differently. Right. That is mama wisdom. That is mama wisdom, because she was not going to let her son get stuck in a story where he was always injured or always broken. And I went to one of my elders, and it was right around the Me Too movement, and I was working a lot with women who were in a lot of trauma, and I asked him for some wisdom, and he said, Leah, we are not the same person that the stories happened to a year later or 2 years later. We are different because of them. And so our stories should encompass all that we are. I think of stories like trees, or even, look, your kid, you don't want your kid to stay 4 years old its whole life. You really want it to grow up and be able to dress itself and go get a job and take care of itself and have a great life and, do whatever it wants to do, right? So why should our stories stay small? Why should our stories not grow up with us? So especially when you're dealing with, and Jennifer mentioned, this rough situation, where there's a lot of drama, and it's so easy for our brains to get, I imagine, I don't know if you guys have this, I've got a racetrack inside my brain. And sometimes a thought form will get on it and it'll go zoo, zoo, zoo. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I get off of it? And I have to I literally have to build an escape route, and I have to train it. When I find that thought, I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you this other thought to have, let's get off of this. And there's all this proof that we actually see that there are neural pathways in our brains. And so, and they can go on repeat. So thank you, this Donald Davis. And so when we're telling our stories, especially when there's a lot of drama in them, every time it's like, what if you tell it with the intention that every time I am speaking, and sometimes I'll say this out loud, I was like, I'm gonna work something out with you, and I am speaking it with the intention to bring healing to it. I'm speaking this with the intention to reflect or to come to the other side of something or to learn something with you. Okay. And when we do that, it's like we're telling our egos, we're telling our brains, we're telling our humans, it's like that are with us, let's not feed off the drama. I always say, I like my drama on the stage, not in my life. We need drama. It's fun, right? It's like we love movies, right? It's like it's so much fun. But it's so much fun when it's like when we don't have to be in the craziness of it, And so when you're in these moments, and we all go through it, right? If you're a human, something's going to happen and you can't control everything and none of that, right? It's going to come to your doorstep, but you are a sacred storyteller. And so you understand that every single word that you speak is having an influence on the world around you, whether you are conscious of it or not. If you're speaking badly on somebody, the projection, the energy that's going towards them, That's a force field. If you're speaking with loving consciousness, that's a force field. And maybe we don't all see it and feel it directly, but we do as animal, all multidimensional beings. So when we're talking about, kind of coming back to this idea of what does it mean to be a warrior, sacred storyteller, when we understand that our language is so powerful that even when, we see all these fires going on in Maui, how do we use our language? Do we feed the drama, or do we say, I'm praying for water, I'm praying for ease, I'm praying for repair, I'm praying for love, I'm praying for all the resources those people need to get back on their feet, praying for healing, I'm praying that people can come around and be supported and do ritual to plant the seeds for a new story in that old town. I'm praying for recovery. So it's like those are the words that we call into this space. And we can do that in everything, in every part of our lives. And I learned that lesson. Very, very powerfully. I was sitting in a fire circle with my elders, and all of a sudden I had this big fear come through me, huge fear. And I started to speak my fear out loud. We're in a prayer circle. There's been so much energy to support our prayers. And when I started speaking my fear, my elder was like, oh, she went, don't you do that. She got really aggressive with me. And I was like, oh. She said, you pray for your life. You use your words to pray for your life, not to speak your fears. So I bring her wisdom and her knowledge into our space. It's not saying that we can't be present with our fears. I'm not saying don't feel all the feelings. I'm not saying don't grieve out loud with your broken heart. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that to be in the all of the all. And, when you come back to that question, Jennifer, around like, how do I know what to share? I've got this ocean of an experience, and what do I share? And you're speaking about trust. And what came up while you were speaking is this aspect of resonance. We need to know what to share when, and our bodies will always tell us. If we can go slowly, and we can say, hey, create a sacred container for what you're sharing. I'm sharing this with the intention to move this energy, to make sense, to be wise, to shift things, to bring healing to the situation. It's like set your ground with your language, so the words can be, the experience can shift and transform. Any questions before I go on? The other thing that is just, in terms of what does it mean to be a warrior storyteller, is that more and more and more, it's when I think about a sacred story, and again, going back, Walter said it's got a life inside of it, right? So these stories, it's like when we say that they're sacred, we're saying, I honor the divinity inside you. I see the life inside of you. So when I'm carrying a sacred story, I'm carrying a story that is here in service to life. Okay. I actually think that being a sacred storyteller is one of the easiest gigs in town. Are you ready? It's so easy. It confuses people. And I'll tell you why. And I've seen this happen a lot. It's because trust is involved. You got to trust that you're with a really hot tango partner. And it goes like this: when you come into this journey of yourself as a storyteller, and you say, okay, I know what I'm committed to. I'm committed to love. Okay, I'm going to want to bring more love onto the planet, because I think it might do a thing or two, right? And so I'm going to tell stories that hold the resonance of love, care, and consideration in them, right? You're going to do that. You're going to do that too. Now, when you come to this point of that, that that's what you're holding in you, and that that's the resonance, and the power of who you are as a listener, and that the only way a story can be carried or kept alive is if you give it your life force and breath and a space in your real estate of your consciousness. So when stories start coming at you, to me, it is like a warrior move where you've got your blades, and maybe you're doing Tai Chi, or oh my God, I can't remember all the names of those warrior moves. I want to say Feng Shui, but that's not quite it. But you know what I mean? Qigong, or all those things. And you can see the story is coming at you. And is that story carrying love? Is that story coming to bring people together? Is that story coming to wake people up? Or is that story spreading divisiveness? Is it spreading fear? Do you know the root of the story? Do you know where it comes from? Do you know the intention of the person that created it? And so, I think of like stories are like resonance. It's like if we have a little bit inside of us, it can stick to us. So look, I don't know about you guys, but it's like it's all here: joy, love, and fear, and all the things, and anxiety. It all lives here. So if a story that's got fear in it comes at me, it could easily stick. But as a sacred storyteller, I have to go, whoa, 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 wait a second. Is this story coming in through the gateway? Will I feed it? Will I nourish it? You know. So I really want to encourage you to really think about, what does it mean to be a warrior storyteller? Someone who is fiercely defending the pathway for life, thriving. It's using your language in that way, tending to all the dramas and the traumas and all the things that are going on. I'm going to tell you a story. And this story came to me when I was in a lot of fear. And the reason why I was just saying that being a sacred storyteller is the easiest gig in the world is because, it's like when you know what you're in service to, when like I'm in service to this, then like there's that energetic resonance that comes to you, right? So those stories will come to you. And then you get to you got to trust your dance partner, and your dance partner is the muse. Okay. And what that looks like is putting your pen to the paper and just letting it go. Okay. And just saying, okay, you take me, you show me what the story is. Okay. And that means it's like you're with this other life force, and you're like, and you might kick up your heels and have a couple of good moves, but you're letting it lead you into the story. You're letting it tell you the story. And we can even do this with our own stories, because our own stories, I can tell you my little human story, but if I'm going to tell you the soul story of me and my journey, the metaphor of my blah, 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 well, that's going to be a really big story. And it's more than mine. It's a universal story. And so when we start to catch those kinds of stories, we come into great relationship with the spirit of stories. And so we actually have some great classes that are all designed to help you to do that. I'll tell you guys about that in just a couple of minutes. But okay, so this story came to me. It was during the beginning of COVID. And it was like really the very beginning, when we didn't know which way was up or down or upside down or anything. And the fear in me was so big. It was so big. And I was living in LA. My boyfriend was in LA. I live up in the mountains, the nature. He lives down in town, and helicopters were going by over top. Like my anxious system was so activated. And I was beginning to speak all this fear into the room, and the good thing about teaching this is you got to take your own medicine, right? So I started to hear the fear, and I turned to my boyfriend. I was like, hey, can we play a game? And lucky for me, he's very creative and might love to play games. And he was like, sure. And I was like, can we make up a story? He's like, sure. So this story came alive, and it came alive as the antidote, as something to bring a little bit of healing salve to the fear that was in the room. Okay, it goes like this. I begin every story with, may all the words that need to be heard be spoken, and may all the words that need to be spoken be heard. And so I invite you into that tender place in your heart that might know fear, that wants to hear this story. So once upon a time, a long, very long time ago, it was like so long time ago, there was this amazing little village, and it was known as the Village of Joy. And it was like filled with had these tables that went through the center of town that always had yummy, delicious food, like whatever was your favorite food. If it was chocolate pudding or corn on the cob, every time you went by, there it was. As you walked down the streets, fruits were dripping with with cheese. I meant to say with fruit, but with pears and plums and peaches. They didn't even know what the word hungry was. There was so much natural riches. Now, in this town, there was also this very cute little cabin. It wasn't terribly big, it wasn't terribly small. And in this cabin, there were two little children, very curious, very filled with wonderment about what was life and all the different things that were there, and all these different things. And they had noticed one night as they were sitting out watching the stars, that right on the other side of the hill there was sort of like this dim light coming over the other valley, and they could tell that there was like another village over there. And so they asked their grandmother, and they said, grandmother, what's over there? And she goes, nothing. There is absolutely nothing there. You should need to go home right now and just ignore that you saw anything. Well, you know, you know what happens when you tell kids that. They went straight to grandfather, and they were like, grandfather, what's over there? And grandfather looked over, and he looked at them, and he looked over, and he looked at them. He goes, oh, they said, grandmother said that you would tell us. Grandfather said, really? I said, yes. Oh, these were smart little kids. And he said, well, since grandmother told me, I could tell you, a long, long, long time ago, there were these very strange black things that flew over our beautiful village. And they dropped these things on the ground, and they were like these kind of like black tarry things, and some people went up to them, and as soon as they touched them, this sense of greed, this sense of hate, this sense of doubt started to come into their bodies. And we told them to put it down, and some of them did put it down. But some of them couldn't stop. Once they had felt it, they became consumed by it. And we soon learned that there was no way that the Village of Joy could continue if there were people walking around with that much greed, with that much doubt, with that much criticism of this beautiful life that we had. It could not continue. And so nobody says it's right and nobody says it's wrong. But those great, 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 great ancestors were banished. And they're just over there in that village. The kids swallowed, and they were like, huh. And the grandfather said, look, I told you, but I didn't tell you so that you could go see it. I told you so that you don't have to go see it. It's not a good place, and people have never come back. So you enjoy those beautiful sunflowers, and enjoy those beautiful trees, and enjoy everything that we have, and the dancing, the singing, and the play, and the love, and the life. It's good. It's good over here. There's no reason to go over there. Well, you know what happens. Kids get curious. And one night they snuck off. They brought a little, one of those, they put some cheese and some fruit and some yummy things into a little handkerchief, and they marched up the hill. And they looked down, and it looked nothing like their home. Nobody was, dancing through the streets. Nobody was singing. Everyone was gray and dark, and they were slumped down, and everyone was looking down. Nobody was looking at each other. There were no tables of food. There were people on the ground on all fours, sometimes searching for scraps or stealing or taking. And as soon as they saw it, they realized they wanted nothing to do with this place. And they tried to make a run for it, but they didn't see what had happened. And as soon as they had gone over the hill, the other place, that black muck, that tarry substance started to seep up around them, and it started to surround them, and they started to feel the fear of their life. And in that very moment, the little girl remembered this thing. You see, and I didn't tell you this because you have to be at the right place in the story to get this particular moment. You see, their great, 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 great grandmother had a premonition that something like this might happen to one of her future ancestors. And knowing that, she had carved with her very own hands this very special word into the ground, the floor underneath their kitchen table. And from generation to generation to generation to generation, they were all given that magic word. So if anything had happened where things looked like they were dire and all was lost, that all they had to do with all the might in their life was to say this one word. And there they were, finally at last, in this moment where all seemed lost. And the little girl remembered it, and she looked at her brother and she said, "Chicken!" And he started to laugh. And he laughed and he laughed and he laughed, and his laughter made her laugh, and she started laughing. And when they started laughing, all these sunflowers started to grow up around them. And the next thing you knew, they were completely safe and protected. All that black tar went down. But all the people that were down there started to lift up their heads, and they looked at these young children and all these sunflowers. And the girls, the girl and the little boy, they knew that there was only one thing left to do. And they cut down those sunflower stalks. And they walked down, down, down to this other village of their ancestors that had been lost and abandoned and left in the weeds of greed and doubt. And they each gave them a sunflower. And they said, "There is always a way home." Hi-ya-hi-ya-hi-ya-hi-yo. 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 Hi-yo. So that's an example of, sometimes we can say more with fiction. Sometimes we can get to the heart of the matter with a mythic story, taking ourselves into the fairy tales and into those different places. And this year's curriculum is actually going to do a lot of focus on just that. There's a lot of focus on talking about how to be, with stories as you know them. Like we've got memoir writing classes, and then we have a bunch of other different kinds of classes. So for those of you who feel complete, I say, have a great day. And for those of you who want to learn more about the School for Sacred Storytelling, we have a very special early bird special that's here right now. And there's a very, very special bonus for people who know that they want to register right now in the next 48 hours. Not only do you get the classes that you register for a discounted rate, but you also get your choice of two study on your own pre-recorded classes that I taught last year that went through different kinds of, you get to choose, different kinds of storytelling, how to tell your own story, or how to clear energy out of your own field. And I'll show you about that. And then one of you will get, anyone who registers also gets entered into a lottery to receive their own private one-on-one session with me for a soul story. So I'll tell you more about that too. So I invite you to have a breath. Are you ready? Do you want to see the catalog? Should I show you what we're up to? I'm going to show you guys a secret first. You guys don't even know about this yet. None of you know about this. Nobody has seen this yet. But I'm going to show you the little secret that might be fun to see for you, which is that this fall we're doing something we've never, ever done before. And we are hosting a Sacred Storytelling Summit. And a lot has been changing. A lot's been changing over the last many years. I've been teaching the school for over 7 years. We've had over 1,000 students come through our doors, which is kind of amazing. And in their own evolution, it's like I always wanted it to be a school for sacred storytelling. And as I mentioned before, what is sacred storytelling? What changes it is that it's this combination of earth, spirit, this connection to earth and spirit, and this alchemy of really bringing the force of life into the world together and supporting life. And we do that through telling true stories through telling mythical stories. And this in September, we're going to have every single teacher who's teaching will be doing one free master class. So you get like this week-long extravaganza where you get to taste in every single person. So you might know that, that these are your teachers or which class you're going to take, but you can also experience them live. And if for some reason you pick a class and then you realize that there's another one, you do have the right to change classes once you're registered. So I'll just tell you that. And then, can you guys see this? Did you see me switch? I'm just curious, or if you're still seeing the summit page. You're not seeing, are you seeing the storytelling catalog? The big purple page?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is our catalog, and what you're seeing in it is you are seeing this is the journey of a sacred storyteller. And we talked a little bit about this, right? It's connect to your muse. It's understand what's in your psychic silence, what's in your racetrack. How do you silence it so you can be in relationship with the muse? How do you get through blocks and barriers? Do you have the tools and techniques to do that? Do you know the old stories? Do you know the new stories? Do you know who you are and what archetype you are as a storyteller? These are all the things that you're going to get to explore in our curriculum. And I'm not going to talk about this because I talked a lot about this, throughout the talk in terms of what stories do. But what you're going to see is you're going to see some themes, in the classes that I'm about to show you. Everything from a lot of classes on folk tales this year. We have 3 different teachers that are teaching through folk tales and teaching people how to teach through that. Also, we have a creative empowerment track, writing, storytelling skills, nature connection, and spirit connection. So a little bit different than what you would expect in a normal just storytelling class. We don't have just storytellers. We have people that will give you a really rich, broad expression of who you are as a storyteller. And as someone who both studied professionally in New York City, it's like they would want us to be a triple threat, right? They wanted you to know singing, dancing, and acting, and in this, it's like, it's right. You want to be a triple threat. You want to know how to listen. You want to have a connection to earth. You want to be able to have connection to spirit and be inspired, not think that your ego has to do everything. And then you want to be able to be in connection with your own vessel and your own story and know why you're telling and who you're telling for. So we'll have these 3 ceremonies throughout the year for the entire school. So while we have 14 different teachers teaching all these different classes, you might not get to see everybody all the time. You don't get to pass by in the halls, but you will get to share these story ceremonies together. And then we do orientation sessions so that no matter what classes you're in, you all know that there's a shared culture together. So I'm just to give you a sense, I'll just show you this, and then I'll show you some individual classes. We have classes going on all different times. None of them compete with each other. That's what I'll say. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of we're starting off right off in September with this fairy tale story ceremony series. This was with Jacqueline. She's one of our oldest teachers at the school. She's beaming in from Australia. She speaks so slowly in the depth of the roots that she has. She's really something special. And you're going to get to hear 4 different major stories from her and really work it through your own system. Those are on Sundays. This is The Flowering Tree. It's from Jan Blake. Jan Blake is just a gifted storyteller, healer. And this story is really about honoring your true self, discovering your gifts. And we're actually teaching this class. She's going to be teaching it twice this year, once at the beginning of the year and once at the end of the year. Now, this is very exciting. Naima will be teaching Charming Your Muse. Naima brings a little bit more embodiment, physical embodiment in the work, along with also really working on your writing practice. You'll get to have your hand at poetry. And what you're seeing here is we have 4-week classes and 6-week classes. So you're seeing the full prices. And right now there's an early bird special. So for example, for this class, Language of Listening, this is Hawatea, and she's in Australia, and she's a lot of nature connecting, opening your creative channel, really being able to, we were just talking yesterday because I know her from Maui. And, one of the crazy things about what happened there is there was this elder tree. You might have seen this. There's so many people really upset about that elder tree. And we're like, oh, who speaks for the tree? And the storytellers do. The storytellers are the one that can go and listen deeply and hear what wants to be carried. And that comes through a deep connection. So what I'll say here is that for these classes that you're seeing right now, they are $297. So you get that off. And then, or $397, sorry. And then for the 4-week classes, they're $297. There you go. So Dina is an elder among us, and she teaches all about connection to spirit, connection to your guides and allies. And she's beaming in from Minnesota, and she's one of my mentors and teachers, and just a long time teacher, and will really be focusing on energy medicine. We have two teachers that are talking about energy, and to me, so one of the pieces that they don't ever teach you enough. There's a reason why people are afraid to get up on the stage, and it's a good reason. And whether we know it or not, some of it is that we're afraid of what people, some of it say, oh, I'm afraid of what people are going to think of me. It's actually bigger than that. You're afraid of what they're going to put onto you, you know, that the projections start to come onto you. And so you want to have a really strong force field. And we did at the very beginning, right? We created that golden thing, and only love comes in, everything else stays out. Um, but they're going to go into much more complex energy management, so that you know how to clear yourself, you know how to clean yourself, you know how to connect to your inspiration, a lot of things like that. Every month we have a featured storyteller, and you'll get to experience just a story with some questions and answers, and you talk to the storyteller. And something that we haven't gotten to do enough of, because we've been so focused on the teaching, and now we're all of our storytellers will be telling a story, and this is Serena. We'll also be getting a story from Jan that month. So I'm just going to cruise through, because this is so much information. But this is a memoir class by Marisa. She teaches at Stanford. This is a very fun class. It's astrology class, but it's learning your personal story and how to tell your personal story through your astrology. So it's a lot of self-discovery, self-exploration, memoir, all through your relationship with the stars. And this is again a fairy tale class, and it's understanding feminine rituals that are hidden inside the old tales, myths, and legends. This is a great class taught by Joel, and he's taught all around the globe. Every time I talk to him, I'm like, "Where are you now?" He's like, "I'm in Africa. I'm in Alaska. I'm in all these different places, teaching story." And so we're really lucky to have him. And he's really about helping people harvest their journey, the journey of their stories. This is energy management for storytellers and public speakers. And this is a really great class for you to really, again, like, how do you connect with an audience? How are you working the energy in the field? And you'll get to learn a lot of experience of how we are constantly truly conductors of energetic space. So I'm not going to keep going, just because I'm going to tell you, it just keeps going. We have winter quarter that goes on. We'll have a New Year ceremony. I will send you this. What I am going to do is I'm going to hold on here. Let's see if I can't just get to the end. Can I get to the end? Dun, dun, dun. Sorry. I just want to show you what we have at the very end over here. So we do have an early bird right now. And what you get with this early bird is, for those of you who register in the next 48 hours, you will receive not only your classes, but you'll also receive access to the Master Teacher Library. It's kind of incredible. It's like 5 years of classes that you just get with these master guest teachers, from Michael Mew to Charles Eisenstein to Carolyn Casey to Deborah Silverman. It's just like it's a school unto itself. You get that as a bonus gift. And then you can also choose from all my past courses, in terms of different kinds of storytelling class, a visionary class, a medicine story class, and you can start taking your own story classes right now. You can do that with a friend. You can just say, hey, let's meet up and we're going to watch this curriculum together. It's a gift that I just got. And then again, as I mentioned, you also have this ability to be entered into a lottery to win a private soul story session with me, which is a divination, storytelling divination. So there's a lot of classes, and what we do now is I'll send you a little opportunity to have a one-on-one session. If you're like, I need help picking my classes, you might just go through and you might know your classes, but if you want me to sit there, and I love listening to people and playing matchmaker and saying, okay, what are you looking for? Like, what is the class that you really want to take? We can help you. But these are a couple of ideas in terms of, if you just love to play and you're like, I don't care about taking my story out into the world or anything. I'm using this to access my own life force, and that's all I really want. We've created an example of a curriculum for you. If you're saying, you know what, I really want to work on my storytelling skill building, this is my focus, and these are all the classes that I would recommend that you take. I'm just going to keep going through here. This is the next one. Hey, let me change the page. If you're saying that for that fairy tale focus thing, that was really exciting to me. We've put all those classes together as well. So this is great for Montessori teacher or something like that. Or Waldorf. I got them confused, you guys. I'm sorry. And then if you're someone that's like, you know what, I just want to taste, I want a taste of everything, then we would put together a curriculum where you get one connection to earth, one connection to spirit, a couple of storytelling classes, you get the storytelling ceremonies, and you'd also get 2 creative empowerment classes. Something that you can experience, that you will experience in every single, class is that, once you join us, you get our access to our exclusive community on Mighty Networks. Everybody in every class, you get assigned to your own small group that you can work with outside of class. And I'll say that everyone's always talked about that being one of the most meaningful and delightful things that they've enjoyed. You also get, in particular right now, access to the Master Teacher Library. And then you can also come to my live podcast interviews. So this is almost like an absolute bonus extra class where throughout the year I do live interviews and you can come to them and be part of the Q&A with these kind of luminaries. And then if you're saying, you know what I really want is I really want a certification from the School for Sacred Storytelling. This is where we put our stamp of approval and we're like, yes, you have everything that we believe that you need to really go out into the world as a sacred storyteller, where you've gotten the time, the practice, the skill, and then opportunities to start stepping onto that path of mystery, of mastery. And when you come on, I think, there's something else that I'm offering, which I didn't see, but the PDF on how to guide, facilitate small groups is something that we also offer. And then for some people, when we first started this, I thought that was enough. But some people said, no, I want everything. I want the keys to the kingdom. I want to be able to take all the classes. And we're like, okay, if you want that, then, this is where this becomes your college curriculum. Then this is what we have. And it really is something where you will walk out with an extremely comprehensive experience. And so what you're seeing here is that there's an early bird special, and then we take off even more when you pay in full. And the great thing about all these classes is that once you've taken them, they are, they're yours forever. You can always have access to them. So even if you don't get to come live to all of them, you've got them. So that was a lot of information. Are there any questions? No. So I'm trying to stop the share and it's not letting me. You were sharing your screen. Stop sharing. There we go. Okay. Any questions, thoughts, insights, wisdom ways, things like that? Okay, my 2 questions are above, says Petra. Do you have talks about editing and publishing? We have, no, that's not our purpose. We have an organization. Oh, there's 2 things I want to tell you. Gosh, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot. So we have a group called the Bloom Collective. This is for people who are publishing or have a project that they're in the process of completing and finishing. They're very committed to. And so for those, that's a group where we bring in guest teachers that will help with that, but it's not an actual class. I will say on August 19th, if some of you guys are wanting to get like a little zest for your creativity, my mom is teaching a class. She's a master painter, and she's been teaching at the universities for the last 30 years. And so we thought it'd be fun to offer up, it's like to really test out your creativity and try a new medium just to get your creativity flowing. Yay, Diana, I know I'm going to see you in there. Are there payment plans? Yes. So there are payment plans, and there are different, we're always happy to work with people. There's different ways to tend to that. So what I recommend, I'm just going to stick this in here right now, is I'm going to turn off the recording.